We're on.
Live from Chapel Hill, Franklin Street in North Carolina, it's college game day. What's going on?
What's up, everybody?
I am Coach Neo Venator 250 from the Arizona Wildcats, and with me is Coach Chicago Ted, our defending national champion with the Oklahoma Sooners.
Uh, fuck these
And
bye
that's it,
weeks. Fuck
because
these
no
bye
one else
weeks.
wanted to join. So we're going to do the show our way today. You
Let's
guys,
start with the. Let's go over the games from the past week. Let me find Thursday night football here.
well, I'll go
Perfect
ahead
again.
and talk a little bit. Well, the first game we've got is it's actually a pretty decent game. There was some scoring, picking up balls, returning them for touchdowns. All the classic stuff. Um, the Yukon Huskies and the ECU Pirates from
This is a pretty
Greenville.
entertaining game.
There was a lot of miscues, missed field goals, scoop and score, pick six, pretty much everything you could ask for, um, from two relatively unentertaining teams. Although UConn is now 2-1 in that AAC.
Shout out to Steven Albers. One sack, one fumble recovery, 5 tackles, and a touchdown.
Yeah, that's a pretty excellent performance. That's player of the week kind of numbers there. Also, Ricardo Reed puts up his usual solid performance for the Huskies: 20 rushes, 113 yards, and a touchdown.
Not bad at all.
Deceptive speed and deceptive power from that guy, as we come to expect on an almost weekly basis.
What has happened to ECU? They just don't seem to have their head in the season.
Yeah, I think Coach LAX is hanging around, but I think he just doesn't have the firepower this year to play his normal giant killer self. They're famous for that Fiesta Bowl win over that unbelievable Ole Miss defense, and then taking down Ohio State completely unexpectedly last year. But I think really this year things just they graduated some talent, and he hasn't really gotten the young guys in uh, early enough for them to mature at this point. I think their future looks a little better than the present at the moment.
Well, ESPN fun fact here, but Ohio State is 0-1 against winless ECU teams.
So hey, all you got to do, LAX, is hurry up and get something scheduled with Coach Dean over there in Columbus.
Well, I thought they had one scheduled this year. I
They
haven't
do.
been paying attention to the schedule.
Oh yeah, well,
All right. Utah State at Houston. Standard performance from Joel King, 21 of 34, 274 yards and 2 touchdowns. And everybody who bid on him is still pissed off that he's at a. Is Houston still coachless?
Houston at the moment, I believe they are they're not coachless yet, but they will be soon.
Has the coach that took them done anything with them?
Um, as far as I know, not really. Joel
Nah.
King's sort of blowing in the wind.
God, that's such a waste of talent. I mean, I know that the AI coach is taking over there, but that's still such a waste of talent. Sparky really fucked some people over when he stole Joel King and then just kind of walked away from the site.
Yeah, you'd really like to see a talent like Joel King with an actual human coach behind him.
Also, funnily enough, the third quarter was the Donald show with Donald Smith getting a touchdown for Utah State and then Donald Jones responding with the touchdown for Houston.
Nice, nice.
Got to find the little things to make these Thursday games entertaining.
Oh yeah, Houston really. Most of the balls went to the wide receivers. They had an all-around good offensive performance, but Samuel Jolly, 6 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. Adrian Robinson, 4 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown. Frankly, this game was lost for Utah State because they don't have the corners to keep up, and they don't have the offensive line to stop Houston really.
Yep. And their punter wasn't that good either.
No, yeah, all around Utah State just Utah State was in trouble from basically kickoff.
Next up, we have Wake Forest at Hawaii. Hawaii continues its bad string of luck without Charlie Walter for the next 4 games, I believe it was, for the ACL injury.
Yeah, that was a little minor stretch. He overextended a couple of tendons there, and he'll be back after some PT. But in the meantime, Hawaii is in deep shit without him.
All right,
Frankly,
Robert Barris went 13 of 38 for 143 yards. He did have a touchdown, but he also had an interception, and that's a pretty piss poor performance right there.
I think the highlight of this game, personally, which would have looked, which I think would have been actually a pretty good game had Charlie Walter been in. Wake Forest has a receiver named Joseph Betancourt Zepeda, which is an absolutely excellent name. That should contend for national all-name teams, in my opinion. I mean, that's absolutely magnificent. I'm not sure what's that is that Romanian. We'll have to get
I'm
this
not
guy in for
even
an
sure.
interview or something because that's just excellent.
And he did pretty good, 3 for 53 and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, it's pretty high yards per
Good
catch.
enough to beat this battered Hawaii team, who, after a season on the rise, seems like they've fallen back into obscurity, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this year's a little bit of a wash. They could without Walter, they're going to be rough. But this is a team that it's recruited well. Coach Brian Kelly's face has been a mainstay on the site, and I think he'll get back into it next year.
Yeah, by the time they get Walter back, I think they might not be bowl eligible. I
That's
don't
they're
quite know,
definitely in
though.
danger of that. Definitely in danger of that.
Moving on to Northwestern at Clemson, which Clemson is not the same since we can't mention C.J. Logan anymore. Clemson wins an ugly one that, frankly, they probably should have won with a larger margin.
Yeah, their
Um,
their defense held Northwestern out of the end zone completely, but they were a little they struggled. Honestly, Northwestern's offensive line just faltered, and Clemson was just all over the place. Chris Lewis even got a safety. It was honestly just an embarrassing performance by Northwestern's offensive line.
the
Uh,
the two quarterbacks were atrocious. Steve Reed of Clemson going 28 for 48. He did pick up 274 yards and 2 touchdowns, but you'd hope for higher than a little over 50% accuracy. And Jeremy Anderson goes 10 for 24 with 132 yards and 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter to give the game away to Clemson.
Yeah, the most important thing here is really though the turnovers. Even with Northwestern's horrendous offensive line play, they were in position to actually potentially win this game. Those two fourth quarter interceptions are just absolutely backbreaking, especially uh, the first one. Both were inside the red zone when Northwestern was getting pretty close to scoring and maybe making this a game, but the quarterback just turned it over. And the difference really is that Jeremy Anderson turned the ball over twice when his team needed him to step up, and Steve Reed of Clemson, his completion percentage wasn't high like you mentioned, but he didn't turn it over. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess things could be worse, but you would hope that Clemson's quarterback figures it out before they start to fight tougher opponents, sitting there
yeah,
1-1.
yeah, that ACC they've got some talent. They'll be competing against their Clemson. I don't think we'll see Clemson with as good of a record as they had a year ago.
Moving on to Oklahoma State at Baylor. One team I hate, and then one really terrible team from the Big 12. And
Yeah,
so,
Baylor hasn't rebounded as well from Oklahoma State's not exactly an offensive powerhouse, but aside from all-world wide receiver Raheem Robinson, who's still a little young, but yeah, Oklahoma State can't really put up a lot of points, so that sort of helped Baylor out a little bit. They kept it close for the most part. I say they kept it close, but what really happened is it never became a blowout. But it's hard to see Baylor scoring enough points to actually win many games this season.
well, at this point, if you're Coach Tabor, you just got to ask, why is Jason Vick and Sean Bell getting almost equal snaps when Jason Vick has proven he doesn't even deserve to have the football in his fucking hands.
Yeah, Vic is sort of the MVP for opposing teams a little bit because I think Baylor's got a lot of talent at wide receiver, but Vic just is incapable of getting the ball into their hands.
There's got to be, I mean, his season's pretty much a wash at this point if he's going to keep playing like this. So there's got to be a scheme he could run that would predominantly give it to Sean Bell and get him the experience he needs for the progressions for next season. Because obviously, if he's just going to let Jason Vick share snaps, Jason Vick's going to keep giving the game away.
Yeah, it's Baylor looks to be in for a pretty rough season, similar to their last, and they've lost now. I believe that is 17 of their last 18.
Good God.
Tough season, tough season following a very tough season for Coach Tabor and the Baylor Bears. Hopefully, the guys down in Waco can get something turned around at one point. You hate to see a team potentially go winless, but I think Baylor could be looking at that.
It depends on their schedule. I'm too lazy to bring it up right now, but we can revisit it by the end of the episode. South Carolina at Rutgers. South Carolina going 3-0, and I forget their coach's name if they have one.
It's kind of long, but he's actually been pretty good. He's turned South Carolina around. They really haven't done much since coming onto the sim, but you got to be encouraged by the results they've had so far. Undefeated in the SEC, and I believe they are the 7th undefeated team in the SEC right now.
Frank Barrett getting only 10 touches for 48 yards, but turning 2 of those into touchdowns.
Yeah, that's he's not getting a lot of handoffs, but he's been efficient when he's done so. 4.8 yards per carry is it's not bad, especially when you got 31 for 49, 306 yards and 2 touchdowns in the passing game.
Right.
You're sort of just spelling the quarterback's arm at that point.
If you're the coach, you got to be happy about that performance. Now, we do want to bring into play that the Rutgers head coach did not game plan for this game. I don't know how that would have affected the status of the game either way, but there was no game plan put in against South Carolina for Rutgers. I don't know if that would affect it at all, but
I think it definitely could have, depending on how well coach prepared, but didn't happen. So
Coach Atchme for Rutgers didn't seem like he was prepared at all. He didn't even know his game was on Thursday night. So
yeah, he's seemed a little lost since coming back to Rutgers. I'm not sure how their season's going to go. They've got a little talent, but their coach needs to be prepared a little better in the future if he wants to win a few games.
He was probably out with Coach Slinky for that guy's 21st birthday.
Entirely possible. Entirely possible.
All right. Moving on. Vanderbilt at Minnesota. 2 really good coaches with 2 winless teams, and it looks like Minnesota wins despite not having a single passing touchdown.
Yeah, well, the key to this one is the running games for both teams. Minnesota, KJ Richards had 157 yards and 2 touchdowns on only 20 touches, which is pretty impressive.
Even their fullback, I believe David Snyder would be a fullback, got in on the action with a 1-yard touchdown run down at the goal line.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know we're going to see some pretty good fullback action later on in some games, but definitely got to give a shout-out to Snyder. Getting Minnesota off the snide with that play. Unfortunately, sorry.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, we did see an injury in this game. Outside linebacker Joseph Mobley for Vanderbilt. He is day-to-day, so not a very serious injury, but hopefully he's able to get back on the field quickly.
I'm hearing he'll probably start next week. It's just a case of turf toe.
That makes sense.
Something the trainer should be able to treat. And congratulations to Coach Bingo from Minnesota doing what the Oregon Ducks couldn't do and actually getting a win this week.
Ooh. Let me let's someone link some burn units in the chat. We need to get on that stat.
And let's move on to Arkansas at Army. Probably one of the most action-packed games you'll ever see on a Thursday night, with Arkansas pulling it out with a touchdown with 52 seconds to go, winning 42 to 41 with the passing stats out of this fucking world. R.J. Stanford going 44 of 71 with 627 yards and 6 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, while Adam the Savior from Army did 26 of 41 for 513 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, combining for over 1,000 yards of passing. The defenses said fuck that and just sat down and let them do what they wanted to do in this game.
Yeah, if I was making a list of top 10 all-time greatest games in the site's history, this would without question be on that list. This one was absolutely wild. Army, you could see the disappointment in their faces as Arkansas just drove down the field again and again. And then that last one was just an absolute heartbreaker. But you gotta give it to them. Their impact players came to play. The role players came to play. Adam Stave on the Army side was 26 of 41, 513 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. Arkansas managed to win this game despite R.J. Stanford throwing 3 interceptions to go with those 6 touchdowns. And, of course, all-world cornerback Laurent Christensen for Army, 2 interceptions and 4 tackles.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Not to mention Army running back Zach Croker's incredible yards per carry, 153 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries.
Fantastic. That's something that a running coach would love to see. 13 for 194 yards receiving for EJ Steed. That's ridiculous also.
There
This
were
game was just
five. There were 5 receivers in this game that had over 100 yards. 5.
including Paris Fernandez, who only had 4 touches for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Just the kind of games you're not normally going to get on a Thursday night. Shout out to them. Probably game of the week so far, but we'll have to see what else happens. Moving on to the Friday night games, little maction for us all here. Ohio at Buffalo.
And we'd like to remind you before we go over this game that Maction is in fact magic, brought to you by the creator of My Little Ponies, head coach of Wisconsin, Taffy owner.
It should be the D2, but we'll get into that later. Ohio beats Buffalo. Buffalo with an absolutely horrid offensive line rating. Decent punting, but Chad Welch just couldn't carry it. 19 for 59 yards. Oh, I just got a little sick there.
And that fumble happened, actually, it's during the handoff. He had just barely secured the ball, and then, of course, the left guard missed his block, and a defensive tackle actually hit him as he was securing the football from the handoff. So that fumble, while he should have held on to it a little bit better, that's sort of on the offensive line.
And with an offensive line that bad, you can pretty much blame everything on them.
Yeah, 2.9 is absolutely putrid.
And just looking over the rest of the stats, Melvin Winters, a name we haven't heard before, or at least I haven't. 22 of 33 for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. A very solid performance to help put away this pesky Buffalo team. If that fumble doesn't happen in the second quarter, you might be looking at a one-possession game, maybe even a Buffalo victory, depending on which way it goes.
Yeah, with a quarterback that savvy, Ohio could potentially be looked at as one of the favorites in the MAC this year. Melvin Winters is he's played lights out. It's one game, but he has the opportunity to get going for sure. Not a lot of really strong defenses he'll have to worry about too much.
Sitting at 1-0, Ohio looking like the leaders of the MAC right now. King of the shit pile, but whatever.
Speaking of the leaders of the MAC, Our next game, Ball State at Western Michigan, featured two undefeated so far teams in that conference, and Ball State coming out the 28-24 winner at 2-0.
Not bad. Pretty decent game. Joel Summer, 11 to 22 and 145 yards, kind of pedestrian numbers there, but he did pick up 2 touchdowns. Kind of just really defensive dominated game yards wise, but not score wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, both teams are fairly balanced, but part of the difference was just Ball State scored when it counted. With a minute, 3 seconds left, the game-winning touchdown run from Christopher Rodriguez, who put up actually pretty solid numbers, 19 carries, 83 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Came through when it counted.
I'm going to attribute this one to the poor punting average of both teams. Neither one of them averaging over 40 yards a punt, leaving it pretty close to their own territory every time they did. Decent game from action, but both teams seemed kind of like it was a defensive, a bend don't break, but kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll be interested later in the year to see how these MAC offenses keep up when it's snowing.
Oh yeah, it's gonna snow everywhere.
Oh yeah, the whole
Uh,
conference is going to get a blanket.
Next up is Akron versus Central Michigan. Akron had no chance in hell. Central Michigan's quarterback is 13 to 28. You'd hope he'd have a little bit better passing performance from such a poor Akron team, but 193 yards and 2 touchdowns does help. As Akron's quarterback only went 7 of 24 for 93 yards. That's Jason Vick territory right there.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But you got James Waite for Central Michigan, 17 carries, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I believe he's the only MAC running back to break 100 yards this week.
That's a good stat. I think you're right. Because I don't think Ohio. Yep, so far. And looking at the next two games, I doubt either of them broke 100 yards. So congratulations to James Waite. Yep, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, like you said. This one seemed like it was pretty running oriented, with the exception of John Myers. He did just enough to lead the team. Central Michigan winning, not necessarily a blowout, but winning
But
pretty
a
big.
strong showing. Strong
Yeah.
showing. 5.1 is a pretty good offensive line rating for in the MAC that we've seen so far. On defense for Central Michigan, really they sort of put this one away. Roberto Castaneda, a sack, a safety, 4 tackles, and Mitchell Warren added another sack and a handful of tackles. Frankly, Akron just doesn't have the playmakers on defense to match up.
Right. I think if you put Ohio against Central Michigan, Ohio wins that game every day, though.
Fair
Just by
enough.
my speculation of looking at the games.
Well, the great thing about the MAC is that we'll get to see that later in the year.
And that'll be an interesting matchup. I just don't think Central Michigan's quarterback can keep it together long enough against a good team like Ohio. Next up, Eastern Michigan at Kent State. Kind of a sloppy game.
Charles Warren, the Eastern Michigan quarterback, I would not be surprised if his arm fell off after this one.
Good God. 32 of 66 for 283 yards and only 1 touchdown and 1 interception. That kind of screams.
66 attempts. Whew.
That screams an undisciplined team to me that's getting a lot of penalties and is driving the team back. I don't know how you can get 283 yards and only 1 touchdown paired to only 1 interception if that's not a green offensive line.
Get that boy in the ice bath this morning. Good God.
Man. Well, Eastern Michigan could not pull it out, and everything else seems pretty solid. Both their punting averages are kind of weak. Kent State has a pretty impressive offensive line, but I think it comes down to Eastern Michigan penalties. There's no way you can get 283 yards and only 1 touchdown and win a fucking game out of
Yeah,
66 attempts.
your running game would have to, I could see if you're piling up that yardage in between the 20s But then if you're doing that and you're not scoring through the air, you need to get your running back some carries and kind of show a little more balance in the red zone where the back of the field sort of acts as an extra defender. I think Eastern Michigan sort of was able to rack up a lot of yards, but it doesn't really feel like they could just close out drives.
Right, and Alvin Robbins, 6 of 26 for 25 yards. Coach just kind of ignored him there. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
what the
not going to get it
situation
done.
down there in Eastern Michigan. I don't know how good he is, but you may want to try to give him the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, 6 for 25 is not going to get it done, and it's above 4 yards a carry, so he could probably handle a little bit more of the workload, but yeah, uh, if you're that one-dimensional, sometimes if you don't have the talent, you're just not going to win the games.
Kind of like I was when I had Robert Price in season one. Oh God. Anyway, Toledo at Bowling Green, and we can finally be done with the action. Bowling Green pulls out a victory in a game that was pretty evenly matched. Uh, right off the leg of a Marty Jones 29-yard field goal. Both the quarterbacks having decent enough performances. You would hope Carl Chapman improves at 11 for 23 by the time the games start getting more tough.
Yeah, I feel like I
Luke
like
Spring.
Bowling Green. I like Bowling Green and Toledo's balance. Both of them threw it uh, under 25 times a game and ran it more than 15. I like that they're doing that. Bowling Green was a little bit more successful on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 73 yards.
Luke Spurlock absolutely won the game for them.
Yeah, that's they more or less leaned on him when it counted, and that seems to pretty much be the difference, as well as Bowling Green making a few plays on defense to hold Toledo when they
Yeah,
needed to. Todd
yeah,
Graves with the pick and Robert Garrison with a sack.
yeah. Give the game ball to Luke Spurlock because you don't give it to the kicker. They get a big head if you do that.
Fair enough.
All right, the Maction is done. Now we can get back to real games.
No offense to the MAC, but
It should have been the FCS, and then we wouldn't have a recruiting problem. But anyway, uh,
another story.
this morning, Tennessee at Duke, and Tennessee pulls off their first victory, 30-14, as Duke kind of continues to spiral a little bit, having a 7.1 offensive line, but Mark White throwing it 67 goddamn times. What is going on with these 67 to 60 to 80 attempts per game these coaches are giving these quarterbacks?
I think the trend that you're seeing is we've got a lot of strong receivers. I know Adrian Allen, that dude can put up some numbers. He had over 200 yards receiving last week, and you're trying to see coaches take advantage of that. But in this one, it sort of didn't really matter as much. A lot of people were picking Duke in this game. I remember that. I did pick Tennessee. Congratulations again to Coach LDO, who managed to pull off his first victory on the road as well. But yeah, I think really this game came down to you don't really contain Adrian Allen when his quarterback is just blatantly trying to get it to him as many times as he can. You don't really stop him. You don't really contain him. You just sort of try to keep him from getting in the end zone, and you hope that the rest of Tennessee's team will make a mistake or won't be able to get it done. And frankly, that's what happened. Mark White threw 2 picks.
And I mean, I maybe Coach LDO pulled the wool over the eyes of I believe Coach Darman for Duke. Am I correct?
Oh yes,
I believe he may have pulled the wool over the eyes. He went with a very balanced set that seemed to be a bit run oriented with 3 touchdowns for Larry Hollyman off of 105 yards for 19. So I'm guessing he would just chuck short to middle and then give it to Larry Hollyman. Hollyman would just finish the rest. Duke just
nothing
didn't know it was coming.
nothing wrong with nickeling and diming them down the field.
If it works, it works. LDO, it just seems like LDO outcoached Darman, really. They seem
Yeah,
like they'd be even teams. I don't have their depth charts pulled up, but based on the line ratings and the punting average, they seem like they'd be even teams. But speaking from personal experience, if you let your quarterback throw it 67 times a game, your running back better be like 2 star or below, or you're just not using him enough.
fair to say, fair to say. I think these two teams were fairly evenly matched. I think Tennessee has a little bit of a better roster, especially on defense. There's no question. Duke is a little unbalanced. Their offense is fairly strong, and the defense has some growing up to do. But I was expecting a closer game than this one.
Yeah, I think bottom line, LDO outcoached Darman, absolutely.
All right.
SMU at number 9, Georgia. The Ponies get fucking railroaded again. Good for Georgia being 2-0.
Definitely, definitely. 14-point win for Coach Franz Kafka. But this one was, the Ponies did keep it a little closer than it could have been. This one had the potential to get ugly.
I think uh, I think Kafka is just more concerned with picking up victories than running time into the ground like I would be doing. But 16 to 29 for 193 yards and 2 interceptions. He did have the one interception that led to, well, actually, that was returned for a touchdown at the very beginning of the game. But I mean, that was early game jitters that he shook off thereafter. And SMU just didn't have the team. Uh, they did what they could on the defense, but they just did not have the team to keep up with Georgia. It's going to be another rough year after the death penalty for SMU. What is that, like 30 seasons now?
Yeah, and I know SMU. They sort of have TCU as their measuring stick, and so they're watching closely what goes on in Fort Worth. I know that's a big rivalry, but both teams played against Georgia this year. Um, TCU fared certainly better. They only lost by 3, but
Well, I
so it remains to be seen if Coach Danger Zone will claim this as another victory for TCU and attempt to add it to his squad's win total.
Well, I mean, if you put them together right now, I don't think there's any chance that SMU beats TCU.
No, I don't think so either.
It'll be funny when time loses. Anyway, New Mexico at Virginia Tech. This one got ugly, and it got ugly quick. It was 28 to nothing by halftime. The backups were pulled in, and even the backups scored.
Yeah, Charlie Pennington for New Mexico manages to bring a
Damn.
score in just to prevent the shutout. But this one was a laugher before halftime.
When did he bring it? He did. It's a 2-yard touchdown run,
Yeah, early
of
third.
which he is not credited on the score. He's not credited in the game report for.
Yeah, I think the guys who put together this scoring report probably fell asleep, and so they just sort of
Yeah,
missed that one. They
then
sort of missed that one, but we'll have to get that corrected at some point. And get
22 for 51 yards. That's some defense right there.
yeah, Virginia Tech was not playing around, and they'll send New Mexico back to the desert. A very unhappy team.
Virginia Tech, early front runner for ACC, I guess. I
Well,
don't, I
it's
don't know a
certainly
lot
possible.
about them.
They're a contender for sure.
Has any other ACC team really stepped up so far? I know Florida State's kind of 0-2 right now, and
Yeah, Florida
Duke's.
State's 0-2, but they've played a far tougher slate than anybody else, except for arguably Pittsburgh, who I would install as the favorite in the ACC. Miami, I believe, will be a contender as well.
I don't trust James Dale as far as he could throw the goddamn ball to the defense. He's had a
Well,
couple good
that's
games, but
fair.
James Dale his entire career has been the wild card.
That's fair, but he's a junior now. He's done some growing up, and I think he's gotten better. Let me ask you this while we're talking about this: who would you take, James Dale or A.J. Jefferson?
At this point, I would take AJ Jefferson.
Fair
He
enough. Fair
seemed he
enough.
seemed to have more stable. We didn't get to see what he could do in the ACC championship because of Coach Pat Narduzzi and his fucking cheating ways. But I think he would have held his own a lot better against that Florida State team than Clemson did, or not
I would
Clemson,
I would
Pittsburgh.
agree. I would agree. North Carolina last year was a better team than Pittsburgh for sure. But Dale doesn't have as much to work with as Jefferson, I would argue.
That's true. Dale he's just such a he's almost like Robert Price was when he was on my team.
Ooh,
Such a
shots
wild card.
fired.
Just I mean, he could have a great game and then he can go out and have a shit game and then he can have a great game. And I mean, he may be a great quarterback, but it just seems to me that he's a bit of a wild card.
Well,
Kind
we'll
of like
see.
a better Tommy Jones.
Hmm. Interesting. All right, moving on. We have an absolute wrecking in Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, my Arizona Wildcats go to 2-0 against the Georgia State Panthers during my coaching career, with a 49-20 beatdown that featured way more rushing touchdowns than I was expecting.
I mean, I just want to remind you, you're talking about Georgia State here.
That is fair to say, but I will revel in victory no matter who it comes against.
Okay. You go ahead then, because I'm just looking over this game because I kind of glanced through it and said fuck it because I realized that Georgia State was playing Arizona.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was the Arizona show. The backups came in. Georgia State continues to build that school, which was absolute garbage when they first took it over.
Oh
Their
yeah.
OT Dobson has been doing some work. I haven't seen him around recently, but I'm sure.
Oh yeah. He's around. Yeah, I feel like Coach Aaron's done a pretty good job. There's a massive difference between both of our first games on the site, in Tucson when I set the margin of victory record 73-0, and this game.
Uh,
This is a much better Georgia State squad than that one was, without question.
Maybe in a couple
Um,
years they could actually be bowl eligible if they're still around.
I believe that's actually entirely possible. They recruited very well. They're in a fertile region, a lot of access to very good players. I would not be surprised if Georgia State was bowl eligible a season or two from now.
That'd be a good success story. Uh,
Definitely.
Temple at Syracuse. Syracuse rolled. Uh, Temple had two quarterbacks in. Did Temple put in their blowout quarterback
No, I
right
believe
at the very end?
Temple have ran a few trick plays here.
Oh, okay.
How about Lamar Detmer for Syracuse? 25 yards a catch. Talk about big play wide receiver.
That's ridiculous.
That to me screams a couple of busted coverages.
Well, Temple is a pretty poor team, as
Yeah,
they
I think
traditionally
I
are.
think poor alien UFO isn't working with a whole lot over there in Pennsylvania. I think once he gets a couple of recruiting classes, that'll be a very improved team because he's a very good coach, but Temple's in a pretty bad way at the moment, and starting off with who they started off with, and the first game was against Penn State of all teams. Good lord. So that was
Just
that was there was some insane stats. I remember what the running back was over 300 yards rushing. Um, that's absolutely he's the nation's leading rusher after 2 weeks, and he only played one game.
I mean, if you're Temple, you got to be happy you were only down 11 at the end of the third quarter.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
got
I
to
mean
take a
this is
small
this is the
victory.
most
This
point.
this is a team that I think is front runner for being winless this season.
Oh, no question. They actually scored 17 is I believe the most points they've scored so far.
I
So they
believe
got a little bit of
Alien kind of celebrated that in the game stats.
yeah.
Utah at UCF. Coachless Utah goes down to UCF in a pretty even matched game.
Yeah, one thing we'll see, Utah has a lot of talent, and I think Utah is actually the better team than UCF. Now that Coach Sleuth of Bears, the one of the Kansas coordinators, will be taking over at Utah, I think we'll see a marked improvement in this Utes team, which I'm not looking forward to facing in a few games.
Also, I believe he was a Kansas State coordinator. I think Storm would get pissed if we associated a Kansas State member with Kansas.
Oh, did I mess that up? My apologies, Storm Stop.
He is like he knows more than we do combined. That's why he writes those great articles. Anyway, we're just gonna move on because this game's pretty. Nothing really spectacular happened in it. Penn State at Navy. Penn State blew up Navy. Declared war on them, I guess. 22 of 33 for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. Whoever makes the playoffs this year, y'all have fun with that, because don't intend to.
Yeah, Todd Jennings once again trying to defend his Heisman Trophy after some controversy in last year's race, putting up pretty good numbers. 23 of 33, 307 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's a Navy, but there are worse cupcakes relative to Penn State. And this one was in Annapolis too. Pete Sheboygan, the Penn State running back, puts up far less impressive numbers this week. 13 carries, 58 yards. Not a whole lot of opportunity, and they didn't really need him to make a whole lot of plays.
Right.
But
You just go with what works, and if 307 yards on 23 catches, that 3 touchdowns, that's going to work, and that's going to bolster the repeat Heisman resume.
Yeah, the really the lasting image from this game is Penn State's two defensive ends. Both had a sack in this game. Jason Johnson actually was the beneficiary when Anthony Beltran sacked Navy quarterback William Stevens. The ball came out. Johnson recovered. And when they stood up, Johnson holding the ball, he high-fived Beltran on the field. They got an excessive celebration penalty because they had a dance after that, but that's sort of the lasting image you get from this one.
I mean, they just don't give a fuck.
They
And
just,
can you blame them? I mean, this game, I'm surprised the backups weren't put in, but
playmakers make plays.
Right. Penn State, I feel sorry for everybody in the big that has to play them, and then everyone in the eventual playoffs that will have to play them. San Jose State at Florida with the impost stupid fucking bet on the line here. And San Jose kept it absolutely close, and it took two Yancey Musgrave touchdowns, kind of put it away in the third and fourth quarter. And
this one was pretty exciting. The first half was very, very back and forth. And, in case anybody didn't realize, any of our listeners didn't hear, the bet was that Coach Empost, who is famous at this point, for running up the score on Baylor in week 1 and bragging about it, he made a bet with the coach of Texas, Azul Caballero, that if he scored 80 points, he would get to take Texas's game plan and run it the rest of the season. And if he didn't score 80 points, he would not recruit this offseason. That bet was shut down by our commissioner, so that will not be happening. But it provided a very high level of interest in this game that normally wouldn't be there. But a very impressive performance by San Jose State on the road in Gainesville, keeping up with a high-scoring offense and Yancey Musgrave, who absolutely is slinging it all over the place once again.
Also, I want to bring up the inside information that Impost, the coach of Florida State, did reveal his entire game plan to his opponent in his hopes that his opponent would game plan around it so that he could score the 80. And of course, Joga, I believe his name is, said fuck that and almost beat him for it.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I know the San Jose Spartans team was absolutely fired up. The news of this bet was all over ESPN. The media was just jumping all over it. Yancey Musgrave has pretty big drug and bad boy reputation that, while not confirmed, is definitely pretty out there. It's supposedly he's been seen all around Gainesville doing all kinds of, Johnny Manziel level shenanigans and going beyond that. So it's not that surprising that San Jose would be a little fired up for this one more than the average team would. And what's really impressive is how close this game was, despite the disparity in the offensive line. I mean, San Jose State's offensive line just threw up a stinker, and Florida's offensive line itself was almost perfect. So you really got to hand it to San Jose State for holding this game close.
And also, I spoke to the Florida AD about Impost's recent shenanigans concerning the commissioner, and he said that he is on thinner ice than an obese man reaching for a cheeseburger on a frozen lake. So
That
Impost
is
needs to,
very thin ice.
Impost needs to watch his back. The AD's coming for his head. He's winning games right now, but his shenanigans won't be tolerated much longer, according to the Florida AD.
Speaking of bragging and showboating, our next game, the Michigan Wolverines and Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in Atlanta, home game for the Rambling Wreck. They got Rambling wrecked. Coach Trey Chaffin was heard gloating about winning this game before it even was played. And then the Michigan Wolverines end up coming down there and winning the game 21-10.
If I'm not mistaken, before these results were even posted, Georgia Tech head coach Trey Chafin was actually discussing the probability, not the possibility, but the probability of him winning the ACC this season. And then this game was posted, and he kind of spiraled down into a depression.
Oh yeah, I would not have put money on Georgia Tech winning the ACC
I would never put
before
money
or
on
after this game.
anything.
But well, the coach for Georgia Tech is known as a bit of a homer. I believe there's some sort of unaffiliated official tournament that he may or may not have won
I think he
handily.
won it.
Yeah, I'd say he did. In the meantime, the actual players on the field, Jamie Avery for Georgia Tech, whole bunch of yards, but not a lot of points. One touchdown
And
pass.
again, and a really poor offensive line too, a 4 rating.
That doesn't surprise me. They've had to do a lot of shuffling. They have players playing out of position. Georgia Tech's skill position players look much better than their offensive line does at this point.
Just if you get 304 yards and only 10 points out of it, either you're turning it over a lot or you have a penalty problem. And looking at the stat sheet, I don't see any turnovers by Georgia Tech.
The one thing that Georgia Tech did do well, they did defend the run. Edwin Forster is an absolutely massive running back. He's 6'3", and I believe over 230 pounds, the Wolverines running back. 19 carries for only 65 yards, and he had a fumble. It's interesting that the 2 turnovers in this game went Georgia Tech's favor, and they still couldn't do anything with it.
Also, James Brown scored a 4-yard touchdown, but ended up with 3 rushes for 3 yards. So
goal line carries.
All right, so that's the morning games. Move on to the afternoon games now. North Texas at Northern Illinois in a game that, for some reason, didn't show up on Friday night in action, squirmed into our afternoon games there.
Northern Illinois, I believe, if they were in the MAC this season, which they will join starting next year, they would go undefeated and be the champions of that league. Northern Illinois is impressive.
Yeah, they look pretty good. I don't really know much about them, to be quite honest.
Their head coach, Laser Katz, is sort of in and out, but I believe she hangs out in the film room pretty often, and the result of this game is sort of points in that direction. Quarterback Andrew Davis, 20 of 33 for 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks.
You gotta like that performance, even if it's
Definitely.
against a North Texas. You still gotta be happy with that performance.
Oh yeah, very
Solid
solid.
quarterback play.
And
Even 12 for 48 yards isn't terrible in rushing.
yeah, and then playmakers on defense: fumble recovery, forced fumble, a sack, lots of tackles, especially from Richard Gomez. Impressive
Get
performance
um,
by NIU.
getting it done in DeKalb halfway to uh, bowl eligibility there. We'll see if they can keep it up.
Definitely,
Rice
definitely.
at number 4, Iowa. Rice Rice got boiled and cooked.
Frank.
That was
Yeah.
ugly.
I don't know. I don't know what they serve in Iowa, but if Rice had come to good old Louisiana and put up a performance like that, we'd have poured some gumbo on him afterwards.
Ron Thomas got fed rice. 20 rushes, 227 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
And it's
Absolutely
interesting.
monster game.
Interestingly enough, with Jarius Jones coming off of last season where he absolutely went off, they're much more balanced this year at Iowa, and Ron Thomas looks like as much a Heisman contender as Jarius Jones does. But either way, Iowa is looking very strong on in pretty much every phase of the game.
Almost 500 yards. Actually, they may have amounted to 500 yards. I'm not adding all that up, including the backups. But Rice continues to disappoint while Iowa continues to shine.
Would you? I'd say that Iowa is one of the other than Penn State. Iowa is considered the favorite in the Big Ten this year.
I still don't think they could beat Penn State. They tried last year and they couldn't, and I don't think they can this year. But I'd say that they're probably the only team that could beat Penn State, barring some kind of wacky college footballness that always ends up happening.
Definitely, definitely. On defense, Keyshawn Vance for Iowa, a sack and a pick to go with 2 tackles, overshadowing John Morrison's 10 tackles a little bit.
Well, let's see what happened with Keyshawn's. Keyshawn's pick did turn into a touchdown by Justin Rakeman. So you got to be happy with that performance. 9.6 offensive line rating. I don't think we've seen one higher than that yet, have we?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Just
The
absolute.
highest today that we've seen so far was that 9.2 from Florida.
Yep, I mean, just an absolutely overall masterful game by Iowa. The kind of thing that you'd like to see when, the AD cuts a massive check to a cupcake. Them just get
Oh
the
yeah,
shit pounded out of them.
definitely.
Uh,
Iowa again looking strong in every phase of the game.
NC State at Tulane. Uh, NC State comes in and cleans house while Tulane is still trying to set up its new coach.
Yeah, Tulane I think will hopefully give a couple of better showings, but they're right around there with Temple this year. They're in a nice fertile recruiting region, so hopefully eventually they'll build that program down in my hometown a little bit more. But it's hard to compete with a guy like Donald Caldwell.
Damn.
Yeah, 24 for 33, 308 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very strong.
Fantastic showing by Donald Caldwell. And Jeff Colett, 14 for 83 yards and a touchdown. Not too shabby either. Of course, you're going to be overshadowed when your quarterback gets 300 yards, but still a pretty good team player. And then Paul Phoenix. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't read this shit. I can't tell if that's their running back, if that's a backup running back, or if that's a fullback. I'm too lazy to look it up, but he also got in the end zone.
Cool, cool, cool. Let me ask you, Coach Ted. How do you feel about Donald Caldwell's NFL prospects?
I To me, he's an underrated quarterback because I'm not paying attention to him. I'm sure there's other coaches that have absolutely been paying attention to him. He seems like he could be a really good quarterback in the NFL for a team that either needs a backup or doesn't have a good one now. Uh, but There's going to be a lot of quarterbacks. Is he coming out this season? Is he?
He's a redshirt senior, and I'll just run some numbers by you. 6'3", 233 pounds, so he's almost prototypical size. Before this game, he was completing over 60% of his passes, um, with a QB rating of 126. Yards per attempt could be a little higher, 5.6, but it's hard to argue with his yardage.
He does play in the. They're in the ACC.
Yeah.
I almost made a fool of myself there. Um, he's going to have to compete with every other quarterback that's coming out, which is going to probably include Brooke Shear and AJ Jefferson, not to mention a few others that I don't know of offhand.
Well,
But
I'm
I think
hearing.
he's going to be a steal, probably around the second or third round. He's going to be a steal for somebody.
Good call, good call. I'm hearing actually from one of our producers that we have seen an offensive line rating slightly better than what Iowa got in the last game we discussed. We've seen a 9.7. So 9.6, second best
Who put up the
performance we've seen
9.7?
so far. I'm not sure yet. I'll try to find that out while we're still on the air.
Okay, let's move on to number 16 Boise at Iowa State. Absolute upset. Ridiculous upset, actually, even though it was only a field goal.
Yeah, the
Iowa
Giant
State,
Slayers in Ames, Iowa strike again
yep,
in real life as in the site. Um, Moshe Jackson started off the scoring 5-yard touchdown run as you'd expect. He had a great game, 18 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. But honestly, Iowa more or less shut things down. Iowa State, sorry, more or less shut things down after that. They don't want to get shown
Minnesota.
up by their in-state rivals too much. And this was really sort of a back-and-forth field goal game for the most part. Mark Ladner for Iowa State did have that big 80-yard touchdown run when he broke 6 tackles on his way to the end zone. It's absolutely
Fantastic.
incredible.
80-yard touchdown run. Like I said, you never give the kicker the game ball, so you just give it to Mark Ladner there. Nicholas McMahon showed up with a 43-yard field goal with a minute 3 left to take the lead and shut it down. One of the really good low-scoring game here that ends with a huge upset that's got to make the people in Ames happy after last season's disappointment of not making a bowl game due to being one of TCU's 2 wins, I think, maybe even 1. I can't remember, but Minnesota, if he's still there, looks like he's turning it around. If they got a new coach, I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, they definitely had a great game plan in place for this. They absolutely shut Boise down after that first quarter.
Josh,
Ladner was no one-hit wonder either. Other than that 80-yard touch, if you take away that 80-yard touchdown, he still almost had 100 yards rushing on 21 carries. So that's an absolutely impressive performance on a fairly solid Boise defense.
Josh Spencer getting 2 sacks off of Darren Carroll, and Boise State had a 7.1 line rating, so you got to be happy with Josh Spencer there.
Definitely, no question.
Iowa State celebrating in Ames. This might be a turnaround. They might be able to make a bowl this year if they keep this shit up.
I believe no one in Ames can hear us right now because they're all still drunk.
Good. Keep it that way.
And before we move on to Louisville, going into Tuscaloosa to face number 6 Alabama, the team that had the 9.7 offensive line rating was in fact Florida against Baylor.
Oh, okay. Baylor shit the bed again then. All right. So, stat correction: Florida better than Iowa, but Baylor's not much better than Rice.
Agreed.
Louisville goes to Alabama. Low scoring game. Haven't seen a lot of Randi around, but he's obviously still coaching that team. 318 yards though, only pulling off 14 points. Maybe he needs to show up a little bit more and discipline those kids.
Yeah, Alabama's definitely a clear passing team now. They've got 2 5 out of 5 skill wide receivers. out there, split out wide. Um, they definitely are trying to play to their strengths, and it worked. It more or less worked this time. They didn't score a lot, but it turned out they didn't need to because their defense kept Louisville completely out of the end zone the entire game.
Maybe
Mike Gradishar, Barry Harmon, Travis Lee, all contributing either sacks or interceptions. More or less kept other than those two field goals, Louisville didn't even cross the 50-yard line.
which is ridiculous when Pat Ballard had 253 yards, so I'm thinking the refs were just busy in this game throwing flags everywhere.
Yeah, he didn't help his team out with those two picks either.
He is too. Oh yeah, does have 2 picks. So Alabama wins this one, and we're gonna take a really quick break here.
All right. College Game Day. Brought to you by Head On. Apply directly to the forehead. 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 And by the lovely state of South Dakota. Contact South Dakota Tourism Bureau 1-800-S-Dakota. Or visit travelsd.com. Thank you. We'll be back in a few moments. In case you couldn't hear that, that was Ted's toilet flushing.
Do it.
Oh, nothing. I was just giving them a quick word from our sponsors. In any case, welcome back to College Game Day, brought to you again by the state of South Dakota. Call 1-800-S-Dakota or visit travelsd.com.
Like anybody wants to fucking go there unless they're harvesting oil. Anyway, Purdue at Kansas State, where Sleuth of Bears is from, because Storm kind of reamed us. Well, reamed you. I corrected you for saying that Sleuth of Bears was from Kansas.
Well, if Stormstopper wanted me to not make that mistake, he could have appeared on College Game Day with us and said it himself. In the meantime, our next game is this year's surprise team in the Big Ten, number 21 Purdue, taking on aforementioned Kansas State in Manhattan. This one was
Absolutely
exciting.
action-packed. Corey Mendoza made just enough correct plays to counteract the incorrect plays he made to win the game 35-33 off of a Christopher Spann 8-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, he tried to fit the ball in a couple of tight windows that he couldn't quite make it. One of those was the route was just jumped on a curl, and it just went all the way back for a touchdown. The second was really not even his fault. It was popped up in the air, and Kansas State just picked it off. But those things tend to happen sometimes, especially when you force the ball in a little bit too tight of a space, relying on his arm a little bit maybe more than he should have there. But I'm sure Coach Inspiral will get that corrected in the film room.
Oh, and I just realized Christopher Spann is the Kansas State running back. So the entire fourth quarter was Kansas State attempting to come back. The last Purdue score was actually Corey Mendoza to Mikael Walker in the third quarter. So Purdue nearly Purdue'd and just about blew this fucking lead.
Almost. And then the last score of the third quarter as well was Kansas State.
Yeah,
Valiant comeback effort, but,
just didn't get that onside
quite
kick after the Christopher Spann touchdown.
Yep. Well.
Yep.
Joseph Bowen for Purdue.
Another case
out.
of Kirktow.
Yeah, he should be back relatively quickly. Decent performance by him, so hopefully he doesn't have to miss time.
All right, we'll move on now to Indiana at Ohio State, the game nobody watching cares about. Ohio State blew up LDO's former team. Is Douglas Chadwick moved on yet, or is he still on that team?
Um, I believe he's.
Because he's not on the stat sheet. In any case, I was just wondering if we can still make LDO abandonment jokes, but that's the only thing that really came from this game. Glenn Spencer came out, had a 15 to 22 for 253 yards, two touchdown game. Melvin Jefferson came in, I believe, in backup relief and even got 6 of 8 for 78 yards and two touchdowns. The
Two
Eugene Jackson,
touchdowns to the same receiver, the same distance from the goal. And in fact, they were called on the same play. It was Spider 2Y Banana. Um, Melvin Jefferson just faked the handoff, turned around, and tossed it in. And frankly, Indiana just could not handle it.
making Eugene Jackson look good, 7 for 83 yards and two touchdowns. Most touchdowns by receiver. Robert Grove picking up 2 sacks and 2 tackles. An absolute all-around performance for the Ohio State Buckeyes, which I know Dean Craig Pelton loves to see since his team last season was really a huge disappointment.
Yeah, I think this will go a long way in helping Glenn Spencer sort of get his head right. I know Coach Dean has been sort of worrying on that in and out over the course of the off season and this current season. And if Spencer gets hurt or doesn't work out, Melvin Jefferson looked pretty strong.
Yeah, maybe they could even bring in their third string and win the national championship.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
But from what I hear from Dean Craig Pelton, he's just trying to farm as many wins as possible because he says the back half of his schedule is a total bitch.
Oh, he
I haven't
is
really looked
absolutely.
at it,
He's
but he
not
could
wrong.
very well end up 6-6 again.
It is going to be rough for the Buckeyes if they don't pull off a couple of games that I'm not expecting them to uh, win. Good team, a lot of talent. It's a rough schedule for the Buckeyes. Um,
We could take a look at that later too.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Fresno State at Michigan State, two winless teams. Michigan State picks up the victory. Shout out to hungover coach Slinky Jr. who couldn't be here today because he partied too fucking hard.
I think
Um,
the most impressive thing about this game, even though Michigan State won, the most impressive thing about this game is all-world wide receiver, true freshman for Fresno State, Sam Hiller-Weeden. Everyone was surprised when he chose to go to the Bulldogs over several options at larger schools. 8 catches, 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was the entire scoring offense for Fresno State in this game. Um, he is going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL in 2 more years.
Shout out to Antonio Thomas, a fumble recovery, a forced fumble, and 2 tackles. And that fumble actually very well may have turned into an 11-yard touchdown run. It's around the same time span you'd expect if they chewed some clock in the third quarter. And Michigan State, impressive enough to put it away. Fresno State really had the means to get there, but they never just, I guess they just didn't finish their drives.
And before we move on, I'd like to play a little something. Dun, 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 dun. You get the idea. Taps for Michigan State's secondary. The no-fly zone is down. I repeat, the no-fly zone is down. All lanes are open. Adrian Jenkins, yeah, he had Hiller-Weeden, but Adrian Jenkins isn't exactly the best quarterback around, but 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. The last 2 years on Michigan State's defense, that was just plain impossible.
Yeah.
It's a very different season. We're definitely seeing that here from Michigan State. They've gone from a playoff contender back downhill a little bit. We'll have to see if Coach Slinky Jr. can get things going again.
Well, they're starting back up. They got this victory, but they are in a very tough Big Ten this season. Um, Playing Michigan's not going to be easy. You know what? Now's a good time to bring up the schedule and bring up everything we've been neglecting.
We got one more game in the afternoon. Let's hit that right quick.
Okay, go
Um,
ahead.
Stanford and West Virginia. Stanford crossing the country for this afternoon game in Morgantown. Very nice weather, 75 degrees and sunny, and a pretty decent game. Two teams with even offensive line ratings. Good punting on either side, and frankly, Jason Fowler just sort of outplayed Rich King for West Virginia. 24 for 30, 226 yards, two touchdowns, and a pick. Uh, King was a less successful 13 of 24. So he literally had as many attempts as Fowler had completions. Um, Only one touchdown and a pick for King, and then Marshawn Hunter actually with the ending the scoring for Stanford near the end of the in overtime actually 3-yard touchdown run after uh, West Virginia's kicker missed a field goal. So any score at that point for Stanford would have done it, but instead of kicking it, they chose apparently were fine with going at the run. I'm not really sure why they chose to run it there. Hunter at that point in the game only had 11 carries for 52 yards. So not bad, but they hadn't really relied on him. They sort of were just handing it off, and I guess at that point West Virginia was selling out against the pass, and they couldn't stop Hunter. So he ended up in the end zone. They didn't even need to kick the extra point. That was it. Um,
Stanford's got to be happy with flying cross country just to pick off a victory in Morgantown. Fuck those
yeah,
country bumpkins.
the all the couches in Morgantown as well have to be pretty relieved. They will not be set on fire tonight.
Uh, and since there's been coaching turmoil between ETMIV and whoever the new guy is, it may stay that way in Morgantown this season. We'll have to see what happens, though. Now that the afternoon games are done, we'll go ahead and visit some of the things that we neglected. Three questions I want to answer is, will Temple go winless? Will Baylor go winless? And what is Michigan State's record going to look like? I have Michigan State's schedule pulled up. They lost at Washington and to North Carolina. They won against Fresno State. Next week they have a bye, and then Rutgers. That game will be pretty iffy. It depends on if Atchme wants to show up and actually game plan for that one. And then it gets pretty damn tough for 3 weeks. At Georgia, Penn State, and Ohio State at home.
I would pick Michigan State against Rutgers. I don't really care if the game's on the road or at home.
That one's at home.
I trust Coach Slinky Jr. to win that game far more than I would rely on Atchemy.
That's going to leave me.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, at Georgia is going to be tough. I think that's going to be a grinded out 3-point game, but on the road, Coach Franz Kafka, I've got to give that one to the Bulldogs.
Right, of course. And Penn State's going to obliterate them.
That is going to be a pretty rough game for Michigan State. I don't see how they pull off that one. I just don't think they have the firepower.
The turning point is going to be Ohio State.
If they can win that one, then they could still potentially have a successful season. They could still go to a bowl. If they lose that one, it's going to be tough.
If they lose that one, they would have to win 4 games in the span of 5, which include Northwestern, at Michigan, at Indiana, at Maryland, and then at Notre Dame. They would have to win.
I think at Michigan and at Notre Dame would knock them out. Ohio State, that is a game at home that Michigan State needs to win if they want to go to a bowl this season.
That's going to be their absolute key game this season because I don't believe they can win at Michigan as long as Tommy Jones stays healthy. At Indiana is a freebie. At Maryland could be a coin toss, but I think they get that one. But if they're looking at being at 5 wins, going to Notre Dame, they're going to absolutely sit at home this bowl season.
Yeah, Notre Dame is looking very strong. I'm noted as not a fan of the Irish in any way, but that is absolutely a playoff caliber team this season.
Yeah, I mean they came into Norman and they beat Brookshire and they beat Ty Miller and they beat Sean Egloff.
Yeah, Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish are not playing around. Constipated Ape has taken some. He's taken some laxatives, and he is now out of the bathroom, and he is ready to coach, and he's not playing around this year.
Okay, we're a quick break because I believe Coach LDO is going to join us for the rest of game day, or at least for a little bit.
Hooskies, please.
So while we wait for him to join, I'm going to go get something to drink real quick. So we'll just put it at an intermission.
All right. Uh, in the meantime, once again, a message from our sponsors. Visit beautiful South Dakota, home of Mount Rushmore, lots of oil, dinosaurs. Call 1-800-S-DAKOTA today or visit travelsd.com.
I went to Food Lion last night for groceries, and they're like closing out their inventory of that knockoff Gatorade All Sport. So my fridge is full of knockoff Gatorade right now. Now we wait for LDO
Hello,
to join. Oh, there he is.
I'm here. I'm swift. Don't mess around. Ready to
I don't,
go.
I don't know where Neo went, so we'll wait for him to get back. And then, if you want to give your opinion on Michigan State, if you think that they're going to make a bowl this season or what their final record was going to be, we've determined that the game against Ohio State is going to be their X Factor game. If they don't win that one, then they could possibly not make a bowl game based on the schedule they have after that.
I haven't been paying attention to other teams really. Been kind of naughty. What's Michigan State's current record?
What is their current record, you said?
Yeah.
They're 1-2. They just beat Fresno State in the afternoon games.
All right, I am back, and I have red beans to pour over all that rice that Iowa was nice enough to make for us.
Oh my God. I was asking LDO's opinion on Michigan State because I think we agreed that if they lose Ohio State, they have a good chance of not making a bowl this season unless they slay a giant in front of them.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And I guess you wouldn't call Michigan a complete giant. It really depends on which Tommy Jones shows up to the game. But their showings against Washington and North Carolina didn't get them the victories.
Yeah, and I mean, they've played some pretty tough competition. Washington has a very good chance. In fact, they're the favorite in the Pac-12 North. North Carolina, probably a favorite in the ACC. Maybe not the favorite, but definitely a favorite. I'd have to say if they don't win Ohio State, it's going to be they're going to be sitting at home. Tough road games in the second half. Second half of their season is just full of road games. Their last 4 games are all away from East Lansing.
Ouch. While we have it brought up, do you guys think that this is finally the year Washington breaks through and has like a 10-win season or a season that we all have expected from them? Because every other past year they seem to be a bit bipolar and they lose games they shouldn't, they win games that they should, seem to be really closer, and then they always end up never in the title picture by the end of the season. They're always hanging around the middle of the pack, going to a lesser bowl than you'd expect from them in the beginning of the season. Is this the season that TCTY Killer finally pulls the team together, gets them to either the Pac championship or the playoffs, or at least a high-tier bowl?
Yes, in my opinion, TCTY Killer has finally got a team of killers, and he's going to go around and he's going to pull this off. He's going to win the Pac-12 North. They're going to go to the Pac-12 title game. I don't know that they'll win it. They'll play. There's a couple of different teams they could end up playing.
Evening games are up. Sorry to interject.
Oh no, perfect.
Evening games are up. Well, that's fine. We'll go on to the evening games then.
Cool.
Because we're just talking shit against Washington at this point. Okay, first game we have Wyoming at Oregon State. Oregon
yeah.
State blew them the fuck out.
Woo!
That
Oh,
was
wow.
a bad
Cowboys got ridden out of town.
one.
Oregon.
So I think the defensive stats were put in the receiving stats by accident, because in the receiving stats, Homer Alley, great name by the way, has 1 interception, 3 tackles, and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, that seems to be a little bit of an error. In the meantime, it looks like, let's see. I guess the backups seem to have been put in for this game.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Wyoming backup quarterback William Ryder. That's also a great name. 2 for
Absolutely.
12, 7 yards. But that name, man,
We'll come back to this game when the stats get fixed on it.
sounds good.
Moving on to UCLA at Nevada.
As expected, really. I think.
Yeah, UCLA took him to the woodshed. Ken Eller seems like he's been there for fucking ever.
Yeah, UCLA. That is a team that scares me in the Pac-12 South. I'm definitely worried about my matchup with them.
Now that they have a coach, you probably should be. 28 of 43 and 337 yards is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's spectacular, but
Yeah, and I have to go to Los Angeles to face them. Yikes.
only 1 touchdown though. I guess that's because they handed it off to John Shenko for a couple of them. Ron Gillette for one of them.
Yeah,
Looks like the backups
Shenko.
were pulled in. Looks like it's a backups in the evening type thing.
Next game is definitely one to talk about.
Oregon at San Diego State. Holy shit. San Diego State moves to 3-0 and Oregon falls to 0-2. What is going on in
Eugene.
Eugene? There you go.
Well, down in San Diego. Well, one thing, Oregon lost a lot of talent. They graduated a lot of talent, especially on defense. They still have, their offensive superstar Sean Anderson, Artemio Ramirez, Joaquin Younger at quarterback is a good player, but when you can't stop the other team, it's going to be pretty tough to win the game because you can't rely on one facet of your team, one unit to do it all the time. And frankly, they just ran out of gas.
And I guess I must be selling San Diego State short because 15 to 22 for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns is nothing to scoff at. That's a really good game, even though he did throw 1 interception.
Looks like Sean Anderson could have been a big contributor to the loss, really, with
2 fumbles.
2 fumbles.
Well, he's definitely known for being he's one of those small, quick guys. Compares very favorably to a lot of Oregon players from the past, but along with that little frame comes small hands, and I think that probably if you hit him hard, he's going to drop the ball.
Aztecs channeling the spirit of Charles Tillman and getting right in there.
3 turnovers is not going to win you a game. So Oregon falls to 0-2, and they have a pretty difficult schedule. We'll revisit that when we finish going over the games, though. TCU at Colorado State. TCU gets their first ever victory as a top 25 ranked team, I believe. I'm sure if I'm wrong, Danger will fucking scream that in the shout box that I was wrong, but Nathan Burden, 12 of 18 for 3 touchdowns and 168 yards.
Easily his best game so far as a Frog. Bradley Cooley, 20 carries for 103 yards. Almost perfectly balanced between rush attempts and, a little bit more on the rushing side for TCU once they were clearly ahead, but impressive game by the Frogs, not going to lie. Cornelius Davis just got behind their secondary, so TCU's far from perfect. They're very susceptible to the big play. Cornelius Davis for CSU had 8 catches, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which is outstanding. But not enough to get it done for the Rams.
And this does not bode well for Rabid Snowman, who did not want TCU in the top 25, as they pulled off the victory quite handily against this Colorado State team that was undefeated until then.
Yeah, and look at that offensive line rating too. The disparity there is kind of telling. Colorado State 5.7, TCU with a 7.2.
Daquan Darcy pulled off a safety at the end of the third quarter there.
That was that recruiting paying dividends early for Coach Danger Zone.
I am so glad I don't have to play them this year. I did not want to be the one. I don't want to have to play them. Illinois at Colorado. I don't know that either of them have a coach.
Riding Ezekiel Adams to victory, as they so often did last season.
Yeah, they run him. They run him hard. Just get on his back, and he carries them to victory here.
Oh, also, just a heads up. While searching through the shout box, Cade Rich, the Oregon coach, said, "What the hell? Fuck this." So he is apparently displeased with his team's performance, as he very well should be, I believe. But is there an Illinois coach? Is there a Colorado coach? Because I haven't seen either one of them.
Illinois is Smoking Cricket, so Smoking Cricket.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I always forget about Smoking Cricket. He's in it now.
And there is a Colorado coach. He's one of the newer guys, actually.
I haven't seen the Buffalo since Rome was posting with it though.
I'm not sure if the new guy's active. I'm not sure if he's been online. I don't know his name.
In any case, congratulations to the Fighting Illini, Aaron George, pulling that victory out for the Fighting Illini there. Kind of a sloppy game, it looks like. Eric Harris with a sack, a fumble return, and 4 tackles. All right, then. So,
my comment on that game is, as a fellow member of the Pac-12 South, Utah with a coach scares me a little bit. Colorado, nah.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado was really starting to go places, you feel like, until Rome abandoned them.
Yeah, it feels like that team sort of still has a hangover from that.
David Medley going to waste defensive talent.
Well, David Medley going to waste. Hey, LDO, has Douglas Chadwick? I was asking this earlier since we're on here. Has Douglas Chadwick graduated yet, or is he still on the Indiana roster? Do you know?
He's on the Indiana roster. I think it's his senior. Is it senior season? I think this year's his senior season.
Okay, because he did not show up in the stat sheet in the game against.
Yeah, I noticed. No idea. No, I got nothing. I don't know.
Air Force taking it to Ole Miss there, 23-10 in Oxford. Since JB left that team, no wait, it was Crimson Chin who left that team. Does JB still have that team?
I'm not.
JB, I do not believe has the team. I'm not sure who has that team at the moment.
Anyway, they suck dick.
Yeah, either way, as an LSU alum, it's great to see Ole Miss get the shit smacked out of them.
I mean, what happened with? Was it just a whole? Yeah, it was a whole bunch of field goals. Okay, because I think Air Force scored 23 points, but there was only 1 touchdown.
Yeah, the Air Force busted out the kicker.
Some nice kicks too.
Oh yeah.
40 yarder, 38 yarder, 40 yarder, 45 yarder.
Ole Miss actually had the lead early in the third quarter, and then Air Force decided to stop fucking around with them and took it to the house.
2 touchdowns. Grinding it out. 2-yard touchdown run, 4-yard touchdown run.
Robert Thomas picking off a sack. Pretty good game for Air Force after a disappointing 0-2 start. Maybe they'll start to turn that season around. Ole Miss fans in Oxford are not happy right now.
Alternatively, James Van Buren might be the most Ole Miss name I've ever heard.
According to TCTY Killer, JV has been gone for a while, so I need to take a look at the new list of coaches and start learning these names. What happened here? Okay, so we'll move on there. Nebraska at number 15, Missouri. Missouri in overtime. Nebraska did their damnedest with their coach, but
Aaron Shea throwing his first interception of the season.
Still good numbers for him, but not
Still
the
good. Still good. Made to
not
look
the
a bit human.
yeah. He's been on an unreal tear the first couple of games, but yeah, it comes back down to earth a little bit here.
It was Carnell Meadows who intercepted him, who I believe is a 5 out of 5 defensive lineman. I think, because I remember.
also the punting average looks weird. I don't know if that got mixed up with something else, or if
Yeah,
it's
I
actually
imagine it
supposed to
did.
look like that.
I think both of them would be cut immediately after the game if that was the punting average.
The only way I could imagine that punting average being real is if there were multiple. Well, this is a game where there might not have been a lot of punts, so maybe if there were just one or two punts combined, they could have been blocked, but none of them were returned for touchdowns.
Sean Hamilton,
We're gonna
another.
need to check on that because that's a really weird looking punting average by
It
both.
definitely is.
Yeah, Sean Hamilton continuing to struggle
The
a bit
average.
his freshman year.
Well, he's a
Sean
true freshman.
Yeah, he's a freshman. Yeah, it's growing pains. I think for all the freshman quarterbacks so far.
Yeah, I think with as the season goes on, he'll get better, and next year I think we'll see a stronger performance from him. But Coach Rabbit gambling a little bit with Hamilton, putting everything he had, literally not even spending all of his time visiting. He actually set up a tent outside of Sean Hamilton's house last offseason and just recruited him every time Hamilton walked outside of his own front door. And eventually, despite the stalking charges and attempts by other schools to impose restraining orders, Sean Hamilton became a Cornhusker. Will it pay off? We'll have to see in the next couple of seasons.
I'm sure here in a couple seasons it'll pay off. Maybe even next season. Maybe even later this season. You gotta wonder when the injury occurred to Tom Simonton went down with a knee injury and probably went out the rest of the game. And you gotta wonder when that happened because the last time you see him is before halftime on the
A 12-yard touchdown.
on the game report. Almost said scorecard.
He could have
third and fourth.
He could have gone down at any
so he
point.
may have been injured before halftime.
Interesting.
And if he's not injured, you got to think Zach Murphy doesn't kick so many fucking field goals.
Yeah, and at the end of the fourth quarter, missing the game, what would have been the game winner, 2 seconds left.
24-yard field goal. You got to think if they had their running back in, they would have been able to punch it in there, and then it would have gone to a second overtime.
No, I mean, check out the end of the fourth quarter, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I see it. The 39 field goal and the missed field goal. You just got to wonder, if he went down before halftime, if he would have stayed in the game the whole game, not got injured, maybe we're looking at a Nebraska victory here.
Maybe, but at the same time, with that little time left, they're probably passing it all the way down the field. I don't know if you have time to run it. So it may not have made a difference there in the last 2 minutes.
I don't know. We'll never know. Nebraska falls to 1-1. Missouri moves on to 3-0 in one of the better games of the evening, probably one of the better games of the week. Still not as good as the Army-Arkansas offensive shootout. Final one is Pittsburgh at Kansas. Pittsburgh actually shows up and wins. James Dale going 29-47, 317 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And that interception looks like it led to a Joshua Stewart field goal, but it all comes down to looks like who put it on the ground for Kansas? Because I see Michael McBride with a fumble recovery, but I don't see a fumble attributed to anybody on the score or the game report.
Looks like it was probably somebody who didn't quite make it on there. Pittsburgh winning despite coming down to Lawrence and putting on a pretty average offensive line rating, only a 5.9. But Dale gets it done.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. I don't see any sacks for the Kansas defense. Looks like Michael McBride is the one that forced the fumble and had the fumble recovery that led to cinching it with the Stanley Brewster field goal there. If Kansas can hold on to the ball there, we might be looking at a Kansas victory. But
maybe it was a wide receiver fumble. If a wide receiver fumbles, does it show up on the stat sheet?
It should show up as a forced fumble, or just
it would if it would if he had more than one catch, because there's a Pittsburgh receiver on here with a catch and a touchdown. So if there was if one of them fumbled it, he would have only probably gotten like one or a couple of catches or something like that.
Yeah, and that he must have been 1 for no yards with a fumble if he's not showing up for the receiving. Might have been tight end or something.
Well, the one catch was for a touchdown, so that would probably put that guy ahead of him, even if he had like 2 or 3 catches.
Right. Okay, so that is the evening games, and I assume the commissioner's working on the night games right now. We'll go back to. Let's take a look at. I'm taking a look at Oregon's schedule right now because they're 0-2. Fresno State, they'll probably take a victory. Miami, iffy.
It's a home game. It's in Eugene, but I would not be surprised if Miami won that one.
Cal, does anybody know anything about Cal? I know Todd Lester.
Cal is good. Cal is a fairly good team.
Would you give Cal the victory over Oregon, especially at Cal?
In Berkeley, I would. Now, Oregon. The thing about Oregon is we can look at all these and we can say, oh, I think Oregon will lose this and Oregon will lose it. But Oregon has the offensive firepower to keep up with almost anyone in the conference. So any of these games we can say we give it to one team or the other, but they're sort of toss-ups because Oregon can score. They just also can't stop anyone. But all it takes is a play or two here or there.
Well, Week 8 through Week 11, they have UCLA at USC, a bye, and then Washington. That bye will certainly help for the game planning against Washington, but if the same Washington that's been here the early season shows up there late in the season, I don't think Oregon pulls it off.
I think Oregon will lose.
Be an 0-3 stretch.
I think Oregon, between Miami, Cal, and Stanford, I think Oregon loses at least one of those. If they get some balls bouncing their way, they could win 2. But then I think they probably lose UCLA at USC and Washington, and then they'll win 2 out of the last 3 against Washington State, Rutgers, and Oregon State.
I think they could win all 3 of those, but I think the X Factor game is Miami.
I think it could be a big ask, in all honesty. I mean, it's a tough schedule looking at it, and all those teams have coaches now. Yeah, I'd be a bit worried, but it can be done.
Yeah, there's some winnable ones, but they're all toss-ups. There's no gimmies for sure.
I think the X Factor game is absolutely going to be Miami. If they can't win Miami at home, they certainly won't win at California on the road, and that'll leave them at 1-4. And then if they beat Stanford, they could very well. If they can't beat Miami, they'd very well be 1-3, and then at Cal would be 1-4, and then it would be a struggle to salvage the season with Stanford, UCLA, and at USC, and then Washington. They very well could be 2-7 at that point. And
I'm going to say right now, I don't think Oregon's going to a bowl by any means. They're probably looking at last or second to last in the Pac-12 North.
They have to win Miami if they want any shot at a bowl, because I believe they can win out the season after Washington, but if they're already bowl ineligible by the time they lose to Washington, then it's a wash anyway. But if they could beat Miami, they could finish with 6 wins and very well go to a bowl, depending on how the pack shakes out. But they do have a really difficult schedule. They're going to really need to regroup for Fresno State, or they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
I may be underselling them a little bit. I think UCLA is a game they could win. It's a toss-up, but there's no gimmies.
UCLA has looked very dangerous this season.
They have, but Oregon's got firepower, and UCLA is a team that if you can stop Ken Eller, if you can cover, can the rest of the team beat you? It's possible they could, but could they keep up if Oregon scores like they have the potential to? Could they keep up?
I think UCLA could personally. I by no means want to insult Cade Rich or anything like that, but I believe UCLA is going to win that one. Kicking and screaming or blowing it out, I don't think that Oregon wins that game. And if he wins, then prove me wrong all you want. Then it'll be easier for you to go to a bowl game. But I believe that the UCLA starts that really difficult stretch, and then going at USC is going to be a chore. And then Washington, if they can keep up the talent and the coaching like they have now, they're going to be really difficult to stop. All of the games now, they're lucky enough to have some of their most difficult games at home with UCLA, Miami, Washington. So I could be wrong.
Their
Home field
worst
advantage
road
could play a
trip.
huge advantage here, but
Yeah, their worst road trip, and really the only one that's gonna absolutely be backbreaking is USC. Cal could be potentially. Cal is a game that if they want to go to a bowl, they have to beat Cal, and that being in Berkeley is going to be kind of rough. Stanford's a strong team. They're not as good as they were a year ago, but that's a game that is not unwinnable.
I think they have a better shot of beating Miami than Cal. If they don't beat Miami, I don't think they can beat Cal, and I think they miss the bowls.
I would in all likelihood I would agree with that.
I'm giving Miami the X Factor game. If they win that one, then they're probably slated for a 6-win bowl. If they don't, then they're going to have to outcoach one of the teams that is currently outplaying them, really.
Yeah. I'm getting some from our producers. I'm getting a couple of quotes. Apparently, Coach Cade Rich got drunk last night, and on his Twitter appeared several messages, which I will read. First says, "Fuck this season." Then a few minutes later, "Skill position players so good," and then the last one is, "Defense sucks dick." Breaking news from Coach Cade Rich's Twitter.
So we see which way he's leaning. It's going to be a rough season in Eugene. We'll see how the fans can handle it.
Yeah, I feel like the Oregon Athletic Department will probably have Nike delete those tweets pretty soon, but had to get those on the air while they were still here.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, it looks like the stats were fixed for Oregon State versus Wyoming. We can revisit that one, and then we can try to find something else to talk about.
Right.
I know that people are going to hear this first. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss after this game, please put it in the shout box, and we'll see which one we want to discuss next.
I will right now rule out. We will not talk about TCU's fullbacks on this show any further. So danger! I want you to get that out of your head right now.
Shout box. Anyway, back to the Oregon State-Wyoming game. Oregon State took Wyoming to the woodshed and fucking beat them up. 20 of 33 for 248 yards was Greg Holt. And then the backup did pretty well too. Paul Roberts, 3 of 4 for 44 yards and another touchdown.
Yeah, Greg Holt putting up some Ryan Clark type numbers through the air. Did have that pick, but didn't really cost his team too much. He was just kind of floating it out there, hoping his wide receiver would make a play, and the corner did instead. Yeah,
that pick was when the game was already put away, and he was just padding stats.
Yeah.
Top receiver is Eric Huber of Oregon State, 5 for 78 yards. It looks like the receiving game is just pretty pedestrian. The passing game was okay with 248 yards, but no one really shined in the receiving stats. And then Homer Alley, with an amazing name, 1 interception, 3 tackles, and then bringing it back to the house there in the third quarter to put it 7-31. Is LDO still here?
Yeah, sorry, I'm
Oh, okay.
He's
personal,
statting up.
personal crisis.
I'm pretty impressed by Greg Holt's performance in a pretty rainy Corvallis. Typical Pacific Northwest weather in the fall and winter, but 20 of 33 for 248 yards in the rain. That's nothing to sneeze at.
All right, that's pretty good. I mean, Oregon State, if they have a coach, I haven't seen the Beaver post in a while.
They do have a coach. I can confirm this.
You got to be happy with that performance because Oregon State has been a real disappointment in this sim since they've become a team.
Yeah, I believe on my original application, when I came in and confirmed that LSU and Texas were taken, when I took Arizona, Oregon State and Utah actually were my backups. Oregon State has some roster talent. It's definitely there for them, and hopefully they finally have a coach who can take advantage of it.
I would just like to give props to Chris Tucker, my sophomore inside linebacker, who is playing his second career game and recorded his second interception in as many games, and currently has 16 tackles over 2 games. So he's a good performer for me. So shout out to Chris Tucker and Jose Ortiz, who's a freshman safety who got an interception too, and Aaron Stiles, who is my freshman cornerback and got an interception last week.
All right.
Yeah.
Shout out those Tennessee freshmen, that great freshman class that LDO brought in.
They may or may not have been the players Hiver brought in, but we don't have to discuss that because they're my players now.
It's all the suicides you're making them run.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually those pay off.
We've been throwing wrenches at Chris Tucker like in the last 2 weeks, so he's gotten used to catching things.
Well, check out something that the Ohio State coach actually posted in a message board when he saw the Oregon result.
Wait,
I'm scrolling for my
Craig
life.
Felton post something somewhere?
He did.
Where'd he post it?
Oh, I put it in the chat.
Oh, you put it in the chat? Okay.
What the fuck?
In what chat? The chat bot?
No, the chat for the Google, the Hangout chat.
Oh, okay, now I see it.
There you go.
Redirecting me.
All right. In the meantime,
That's a good one. I was wondering what the fuck was posted there. So let's move on. Jumanji wants to know how bad Texas is going to beat the shit out of BC, and it totally reminded me we haven't done night game predictions yet.
Yeah. So speaking of that, that is the first night game. If you don't mind, I'll take this one first.
Go for it.
BC is a team that last week got obliterated because Alex LaShore kept firing passes to my secondary. If they threw 3 picks against the Arizona Wildcats defensive backs, Texas is going to get like 5. Now, I don't know if Boston College has adjusted the offense. LaShore is a good player. Boston College has a really good team. They just don't have the horses to beat Texas. And I think the offense they have is it's a good offense and it can work against a lot of teams, but frankly this matchup is the worst possible one for the offense they have been running. I have to go with Texas here, winning probably by a solid 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty nasty game. After last week's blowout against Arizona, I honestly believe the Jumanji scheme changed because this game's going to be a wash either way. So I don't think there's any chance in hell unless Azul forgot to. Azul has an offensive coordinator, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He is a coordinator.
even if he didn't game plan for this game, I really believe that Coach Jumanji went and scheme changed after getting his ass kicked in the desert in Arizona. So I don't think there's any chance in hell Texas loses this game as much as I would love to have it happen. Another Texas upset. Not of TCU caliber, but it would still be nice. So, Texas wins by a landslide. It's not even going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I concur. I agree.
All right, next up we've got Wisconsin at number 22, Florida State. LDO, you want to take this one first?
I'll take Texas Tech LSU.
Okay, gotcha. Florida State, they're still ranked. They're 0-2, but the two losses have come against top 10 teams. My alma mater LSU put it on them, and then the next week Texas A&M did the same. So it's sort of hard to. This is a Florida State team that's hard to figure out. They're 0-2, but they're still uber talented. Not as talented as the Florida State of years past, but they're still definitely up there. Wisconsin is a team that I think is undervalued right now. They're unranked after a very close loss to Washington, 3-point game last week. The game is at Florida State, but I like Lawyer Johnson a lot more than I like Dick Cook. I think Wisconsin actually pulls out the upset.
I would love to jump on that boat with you, but I'm stuck on a little yacht called Coach Taffy can't pull it off in big games. I just feel like he just doesn't win the big games. I'm trying to remember back to last season because he didn't end up in the Big Ten championship. What games?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. We've got another note from our producers. In the chat box, the head coach of Boston College, Jumanji, has said, and I quote, "Kill me."
I'm sure Azul and his Rome style taking over of that team will do that just fine.
All right, and back to our regularly scheduled predictions.
Basically, I'm just going to take Florida State in this one. I don't think that Wisconsin can outcoach Weiss. And not to mention, it's in Tallahassee, and Florida State just has a track record of winning big games, while I feel like Taffy doesn't always win the big games, and then he's going to be really salty when he loses. So I'm all for Taffy owner salt, and I'm all for Florida State winning this game.
Wisconsin usually plays Wisconsin usually plays tougher opponents on a more consistent basis, though, don't they, than Florida State. So I don't think it's anything really to do with Taffy's coaching. I think because he's in the Big Ten, obviously, I think he faces a lot more quality than Weiss does being in the ACC sometimes. So,
that's fairly true, but you have to give Weiss credit. He's played. I know the last 2 seasons he's had a home and home with Penn State, and he's played some pretty quality out of conference opponents, even if the in-conference competition isn't getting up to snuff until now.
I guess so. I think either team could win. I think I might back Taffy. And I believe in Taffy. Go Badgers.
All
I'm
right.
glad he sold you two on it. I'm still not buying in yet. If he wins this game, I'll start to buy into his season a little bit more, but I don't think he's gonna win this game.
Who's Florida State? They played LSU. Didn't they? They got beat by LSU, and who?
And then they played A&M and got beat by A&M.
If Florida State loses this game, it's in all likelihood going to be the first time in this college football head coach simulations history that Florida State is not ranked.
That is correct.
Because if they were still ranked after losing to an unranked Wisconsin, I think heads would explode.
Florida State is arguably now this is a mildly interesting idea. Could would you say that Florida State has been the most consistently stacked team on the site? Three consecutive ACC championships, 3 consecutive playoff appearances.
It does help that the ACC has been a pretty weak conference up until now.
I feel like Oklahoma's probably the most stacked team. Like they just seem to keep bringing quality players like out of nowhere. That's how I feel.
Like for 4 recruits, but I would pick Florida State over myself, even though I've won the national championship. They do have 3 conference titles. They have been in the playoffs, and they have been to a national championship game where they fell short against Alabama, but they're absolutely consistent. I only have 1 Big 12 title. They have 3 ACC championships, and they're just a more consistent team. I'm 1-2 against them.
Yeah. That was a nice plug there, by the way. In case anyone forgot, Oklahoma are your current national champions. Just in case anyone
forget.
Ted would never let us forget such a thing.
The only time this is probably going to happen in the site's history, unless I put something out, like absolutely blow recruiting out of the water. But we're skipping Washington and North Carolina for now because we're in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, we'll go with that one last.
So Texas Tech at LSU.
I believe LDO, you wanted this one.
No, someone lead. I can't do it.
Okay, all right. I'll take that one. I think my alma mater. This game is in Baton Rouge. It's a night game in Tiger Stadium. I can never pick against my alma mater in a night game at Tiger Stadium. LSU is gonna go down there, and Texas Tech is gonna be absolute Tiger bait. LSU does not have Aaron Devereaux anymore. Doug Kirby is not Aaron Devereaux. He's not as physically imposing. He's not as good of a quarterback. But Doug Kirby is great in his own right. And LSU just has all the tools. I think the Tigers are going to go down there, and Heinz Mertens is going to go over 100 yards receiving. Harlan Collins is going to get almost 100 yards rushing. And LSU is just going to make plays on defense and run Texas Tech all the way back to Lubbock. Go Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Kirby had a really good opener against Florida State. Like, he was really efficient, seemed to get the job done. Against Washington State, he wasn't as efficient, which I found, kind of surprising, but maybe he's a bit inconsistent. We haven't seen him play before, so I guess we'll see in this game what he's really like. Maybe he has like 2 sides to him, but LSU, they beat Florida State. I think at home they'll probably put it away. Because Texas Tech is still good, but they're not the team they were last year. I don't think.
I don't think they are, but then again, last year when they were. Oh, God, they were in the middle of the road for the rankings, and they held on all the way until the Big 12 championship. So you can never really count them out with Lambeau Throne being Coach of the Year. And last year, Crimson Chen had a bit of a disappointing stint as the LSU coach. Not to rail on him, it's a new season. I'm going to go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. The talent's just too great. As long as LSU can put in a good coaching performance, they can beat Lambeau with talent. They don't have to outcoach him. But if they don't put in a good coaching performance, then Lambeau can absolutely outcoach them and could take this game. LSU for the home advantage.
I think that as well, that they don't have Jeremy Miller this year, but they do have Spec Lewis, who he's lower rated, but I mean across his first 2 games there's 3 sacks. So he's a guy to keep an eye on as well. I mean with Jeremy Miller leaving, they really needed someone to step up on that D line, and it seems that Spec Lewis has filled the void for now. Hopefully he keeps it up.
Yeah, Jeremy Miller is very high on Spec Lewis. He's actually going to be at this game on the sideline for Texas Tech. He's making the drive up from New Orleans, and he's going to be on the sideline rooting for Texas Tech. But I think the most impressive defensive lineman on the field is LSU's Bud Howard. 6'2", 301 pounds. He's a 5 out of 5 rating. And sitting there right next to him are 4.5 out of 4.5 guys, the best of which is defensive end Gustavo Adcock. He's only a sophomore, and he's a 4.5 out of 4.5, 6'3", 271 pounds. He is going to get after that Texas Tech quarterback.
Yep.
All right, next game up.
What's with the pauses? Oh my God.
Nobody has any response. Next game up. Speaking of, we were just talking about Texas A&M. They're hosting BYU.
Well, it's not going to be an interesting game, I don't think.
Texas A&M, obviously, have Matty Swift. Yeah, he's playmaker.
Yeah, I don't see BYU pulling this one off. Not just because they're unranked, but I just don't think they have the talent. They were a playoff team last year, but I think no offense to Notorious, but I think they were in the playoff more because the independents were kind of not as great last year. There was nobody in there as good as Notre Dame is this year.
Well, I mean, I think that BYU was in the playoffs because Notre Dame had a tougher out-of-conference schedule.
Yeah, but I think they go into A&M, and A&M's tight end is outrageous. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Jason McLaren.
Yes, McLaren is absolutely insane. One day they're going to name a bar in New York City after him. He's that good.
Son of a bitch.
Ed got that reference. Matty Swift is just going to throw it all over the place. I don't think BYU can stop him.
Yeah. I think... Go ahead, Ted.
No, you go ahead. I was pretty much just agreeing with...
Okay. Yeah, I think A&M's defense as well is kind of underrated. It's not spectacular. It's spectacular in places, but it's not amazing. But we do have some pieces in there like Alex Martin, inside linebacker, and Tommy Brooks at defensive tackle. I think that they'll worry teams a lot more, I think, this season with the defense. But I don't think it's really focused on that much because everyone's focusing on Matty Swift and the offense. But I think A&M could definitely surprise people this season. That's how I feel.
A&M, yeah, I think they're going to be back in the SEC title conversation there with Georgia. Congratulations to Sleuth of Bears for fucking up the spoiler in the shout box. So anyway,
happens to the best of us. It's fine.
Yeah, but it's still funny to call people out when they do it on game day. I guess we're all done with A&M and BYU there. USC at Virginia.
That's going to be a spanking. NP Clem is a good coach, but they don't have the horses to handle USC coming to town.
Is it Virginia who ran their running back like 39 times last game, I think, and he somehow survived? Was that Virginia?
No.
There was one team who literally...
I thought that was Illinois, but I could be wrong.
No, who was it? I remember making a joke about it. It was... Oh, no, sorry, it was Temple's running back. It was Temple.
Okay.
Never mind. Ignore me.
No, you're good.
USC for the win. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, USC's going to win this one. Virginia just doesn't have the talent. Unless there's an injury, a la the famous Sterling Brown injury that let TCU win that game. Unless, like, somebody like Jerry Rambo. Is Jerry Rambo still at USC?
Jerry Rambo,
Denver
Broncos.
Okay, so he graduated. Well, then I don't remember who's on USC now because I didn't watch the draft. Unless their quarterback or their running back, like their main star person, gets injured, Virginia has no chance in this game.
Yeah, I'd say it would take Mike Thomas going down for the quarterback for USC to give Virginia a win here. USC, I mean, a lot of people aren't picking them as high, but I think USC is probably still has to be the favorite in the Pac-12 South. They could easily be a playoff team if they keep winning. Hard to see Virginia making too much noise here.
Quick question about USC, their fans. If I'm not mistaken, they've been in the playoffs, with the exception of the first season. They've been in the playoffs for the last 3 seasons, haven't they?
Last 2, but I think so, yeah.
Last 2, okay.
I believe it's the last 2.
When do the fans decide that they're too complacent with just getting to the playoffs and start to expect them to, start winning playoff games?
Well, they won a playoff game last year. A lot of people weren't expecting them to...
Yeah, they did win one game against
Yeah.
Tech, but then they got blown out against Penn State.
Last year was probably the best chance, wasn't it? I think
Well,
they hit that Penn State wall hard.
Yeah, Penn State didn't lose except for quadruple overtime against yourself, Ted. I mean, Penn State was outrageously good last year. It was hard to see them losing at all before the title game.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought I was gonna get blown out. But anyway, this season seems like it's theirs. USC, if they make the playoffs again, have they? I don't remember if they're doing any good recruiting. I know Ohio State wasn't, but
well, USC is certainly Dreamatorium is certainly doing better recruiting than his twin brother over at Ohio State. But USC is definitely falling back to earth a little bit. There's definitely a little bit of a talent drain.
USC had the second best recruiting class last year.
Yeah, they're getting back into it, but there's going to be a lull. Now, whether that lull starts this year, do they seed the Pac-12 South for the first time to Arizona or UCLA
or Washington? No way, turn.
Well, that would be in the title game, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see USC win the Pac-12, but I also, for the first time, I wouldn't be surprised to see them lose it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the big teams, like the teams who've been pretty dominant since the early days, are all due to perhaps have a down year when their old talent leaves and the talent that they've recruited has to mature and things like that. I feel like it's probably getting to that point. Next season, I think we'll probably see it. Next season, we'll probably see quite a few teams drop off and have to, pretty much tank. Well, not tank here, but some of their talent will be maturing and will have to step up. So I think you're probably seeing a transition. I think maybe happen.
Sleuth of Bears also wanted us to throw in that Utah has a chance of winning the Pac-12.
I will go ahead and Utah. Utah is a team that I think has enough talent to jump somebody for a game or two, but I don't see them putting it together and winning the division.
Would certainly take a miracle. There are a lot. The Pac-12 is fucking loaded this year. I'm glad I'm not there.
Arizona.
Because in the Big 12, all I have to compete with is Texas.
Yeah, some good teams there.
Fuck up like they always do, and Kansas isn't off to a good start.
Big fan of Arizona. They've been consistent recruiters, and Neo's been there since
always
forever.
Stealing from the Texas pile.
Do a little dance here. You can't see it, but it's happening. Celebratory. I've waited for so long. It's finally happening. Hopefully.
Now Arizona's a dark horse instead of just a non-contender.
Exactly.
All their hard work is paying off.
I'm lurking in the shadows.
Because it's been coming. Like everyone knows it's been coming because of how they've recruited and how they've been setting up a team year after year. So I don't think it's necessarily Arizona a dark horse. I just feel like it's Arizona are finally here. Everyone. Hide your kids.
On the finally.
The one thing that bothers me is I'm set up right now everywhere except quarterback. If this this year, my roster looks pretty good, but I feel like it's going to be better next year. Next year is if I somehow made it to the playoffs this year, and I'm not going to lie, I don't expect to. To me, it would be a year early. The only problem is Taylor Rodriguez could leave early after this season, and if he does that, I'm going to be in trouble when the rest of my roster is peaking. I will have a true sophomore quarterback who would be the best on my roster. So I am sitting here I'm sitting here in my Tucson, Arizona mansion, making every voodoo sacrifice I can possibly imagine to influence Taylor Rodriguez to stay for his senior season in Tucson and accomplish something special next season.
Based on how many quarterbacks are probably going to come out,
I was about to say
Rodriguez would stay.
I hope so, but
I think he will stay. Yeah, I mean, there's I think off the top of my head, I know there's 5 out of 5 seniors. I know that's off the top of my head, and then obviously.
And I don't know if that includes Brookshire and AJ Jefferson, who are probably going to come out. I know Brookshire's probably going to come out. AJ Jefferson hasn't really had a spectacular career.
He's having a really good year, but he's having a really good start to the year. I mean, where is he? One sec.
AJ Jefferson?
He's just disappeared off my sheet.
Oh,
where
he's
the fuck has he gone?
He's in North Carolina.
Yeah, he's completing 66% of his over 66% of his passes.
He's a good quarterback, but I mean, postseason wise, they have one.
Well, they had the sanctions last year, so he couldn't go. He didn't have the opportunity.
I don't know if the sanctions will affect his decision to leave early or not. He's definitely a quarterback worthy of the NFL. But I mean, we all know Brookshire is going to leave because he won the national title last season. There's nothing left for him to do.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Him and Ty Miller are going to walk hand in hand into the draft.
And that is going to be disgusting because I'm going to I won't bitch about my depth chart on here. Anyway, Arizona State at Cal, because we seem to have completely
gotten away from the actual schedule. Sorry, there's only 2 games left. I'm not gonna lie. I'm expecting Cal to take this one. Arizona State's got a lot of talent, especially at running back. John Harris is an absolute nightmare. I wish he would leave, but I was hoping he would go after last year when he was a 5 out of 5. But he's an insanely good running back. But I feel like home field advantage is just going to be a little bit too much, and I think the Bears will take down the Devils.
Who? Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, John Harris. Wow.
Yeah, he's a beast.
200 yards against Texas Tech. That's weird. And
he's a beast.
10-yard average. What the hell?
He is a beast.
Definitely.
They literally, his nickname is Beast Harris.
I gotta go with Cal in this game. I don't know if there's a coach at Arizona State.
There is Pickle Juice.
Pickle Juice, okay. I just feel like Todd Lester is going to have the game that he needs to have with his home crowd behind him to show everybody that Cal is a contender this year and will be a really decent team.
I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick correction. Todd Lester is a San Francisco 49er.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
As much as the Cal coach keeps talking about Todd Lester, I thought he was still in school.
That's because the Cal coach is the 49ers coach. He drafted his own quarterback.
Well, fuck me. I'm still going to go with Cal, but now I have no basis of reason to go with Cal.
I thought I was the one who was. I thought I was sort of tripping there. I was like, what the fuck did?
If I'm talking and you think I'm wrong, you're probably right.
Yeah, I just waited for Neo's
chart and everything.
I just waited for Neo's voice of reason to say it instead. I didn't want to.
Yeah, the Cal quarterback this year is 4 out of I believe it's 4 out of 5, 4 out of 4.5 junior Bobby Kolodzi. it's a very
He
interesting
doesn't.
name. I
He
believe
doesn't have a. He doesn't have a quarterback name, so I'm not gonna. I don't have much faith in him.
yeah. he's got a pretty interesting Eastern European name, maybe Polish. His numbers haven't been great through 2 games, but Cal hasn't played scrubs, so
I'm still gonna pick Cal. Fuck it.
He's got a 5.7 yard completion yard per average. So I mean, he's yards per attempt. Sorry. So I guess he's throwing a lot of short passes.
yeah, but he's
So,
getting 254 yards a game.
yeah,
Them
it's true.
still- yeah.
He's thrown the ball 88 times, so he's looking. Yeah, I'm gonna go with who is it? Arizona State. I'm gonna go with Arizona State. I'm gonna take Arizona State. I'm
Okay.
gonna go with it.
Interesting. Okay, so the next game we've got is Washington State in South Bend to take on Notre Dame, and
Oh,
I feel
God.
like
Somebody
we're
is going to
probably
get
going to be
South
unanimous
Bend
here. Yeah, I don't see Washington State is going to come out of there absolutely beaten and bruised.
It's gonna be
Notre
like
Dame
the
is
Gladiator
really
ring.
good.
Ecstatic that they had this game today.
Washington State's going to walk into South Bend. We're going to be like gladiators of Roman times. We're going to be given like
Yeah.
wooden swords, like just some cloth, and then Notre Dame's like the guys in the armor with the nets and all sorts. It's just going to be horrible. It's just going to be horrific.
It's gonna be filthy unless there's a massive injury fest.
Yeah, this is unless the pipe comes to play. I'm picking Notre Dame big. This could have been like a Thursday game almost.
Notre Dame's ranked too high, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
I know they much would have preferred to put it on in the morning so they could have seen their victory early. Um,
Props to Kendrick Lamar for staying. He's building up that Washington State program, but
yeah, he's
Notre
taking over.
Dame
Josh Blake faltered.
just beating the current national champions. It's going to be rough. It's going to be very, very rough.
So Notre Dame by at least 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be very disgusting, and we're all going to be horrible people that watch it.
Yeah, Raul Gomez, the sophomore for Washington State, is a pretty prolific passer. He throws the ball a lot, but I think it's not going to be pretty. He's already thrown 2 picks through 2 games. I think that doubles. I think Notre Dame just swarms all over him, and I hope he doesn't come out of this game like a broken person. Like I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be bad, but hopefully it just won't be an injury fest, and Notre Dame can just pick up their free victory at the door.
Yeah.
Final game, Washington at North Carolina.
This one's pretty interesting. North Carolina's ranked a little low, but they've got the stars on offense. Danny Patrick's not here at tight end anymore, but they've got a lot of guys. Bo Woodall, the wide receiver, came in with A.J. Jefferson. I feel like they're going to put on a show. Washington's got a little bit more of a team effort, while Carolina just tries to get by with star power. Washington's gonna play the team game. I feel like their plan is gonna be to keep Kern Trapp out there, run the ball, leave nice long drives, grind it out, tire the defense, and take A.J. Jefferson off the field as much as absolutely possible. This is a spot where Washington in years past would have fallen flat on their faces, but I'm a believer in the Huskies. I think Washington pulls it out.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to if the Washington secondary can deal with A.J. Jefferson. He had a good debut. I think it's a good start. Obviously, we need to see a bigger sample size, but seemed a lot more sort of not sure what the word is. Economical with his passes. He completed more than I think he has in the past, and he didn't turn the ball over. And I think that secondary at Washington could struggle, maybe. But it'd be interesting to see how it goes. I think it'll all come down to AJ Jefferson though, because obviously they have Logan Pruitt at running back, who's a freshman and he's got ways to go. So all about whether that defense can contain AJ Jefferson, I think.
You know what? I hate to be that guy, but unless Pat Narduzzi didn't get on in game plan, I'm gonna go with North Carolina. Just because these are typically the games where the
That
Washington
drops.
Huskies drop them. Do what?
You're not wrong.
And this is the first chance that TCTY Killer and the Washington Huskies have to prove to me that they're not going to do it again. That they're a different team, they're different coaches, that they can pull off the big games, that they can go far this season. And this is their game to prove me wrong. Until they do, I'm going to go with my guts, and I'm going to go with North Carolina as the upset of the night.
That's fair. I kind of waffled back and forth on this game. I've been thinking about it for a while, who to pick. In the end, I do think Washington will pull off a close one, but I was very close to joining you and picking North Carolina there. I'm expecting a very good game.
It's going to be a great game, and I don't think by any means Washington gets blown out, but I think just, in the final minutes, A.J. Jefferson puts on the 2-minute warning hat, the rally cap if he needs to, and just drives them down for the touchdown, and Washington doesn't have an answer. I think they lose by 3 to 7, maybe 10 at the most. But I don't think they win this game.
I'm going to put my faith in Washington. I think they can pull it off. It's just it depends whether that defense steps up and can deal with AJ Jefferson. And hopefully his interception Jesus persona comes out and Washington can get it done.
I hope he can too. TCTY Killer is a great coach and a good person. I hope he can finally break through to the other side of the coaching wall that will allow him to win these close games, to get the 10-win seasons that his team deserves, to stop being sort of a hidden gem and, present himself to the playoffs, to the Pac-12 championship, instead of just saying, well, it could have been X if we didn't lose Y.
Yeah.
Fair assessment.
So let's have a look and see where Saluna's viewing community and
Yeah, I don't know if he started on the night games or not.
Okay. Okay.
No.
So we don't know.
Yeah. So at this point, I think we'll.
Yeah, that's probably.
I don't really see anything in the chat box, questions or anything like that. So I think we can wrap it up. Unless you've got anything else, either of you guys.
It'll take them about 10 or 15 seconds to hear us asking if they have any other things they want to talk about. Jumbo,
Was
what?
posting a link, by the way,
Take
afterwards?
409 wins thing. I'm not touching that.
I didn't get to see the first half of this, so if you could post it in the shout box, that'd be good.
I'll post a link in the news and media after we
Yeah,
end
that's
it.
okay. Yeah, that's fine.
It's pretty much just
Yeah.
Nemo and I dryly going over the Thursday night, Friday night, Monday, Saturday morning, and Saturday afternoon games, and then you showed up.
Yeah, like we just made we made like a couple of jokes, but it's nothing that's like can't miss television.
Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap it up here. We've been on long enough.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Good broadcasting with you guys. This has been College Game Day from Chapel Hill. Enjoy the night games.